Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first webinar in our Reduce, Reuse, Recycle Palooza series for 2023. I hope you guys know this is our fourth time doing this. We love doing it because it gives us a chance to actually, virtually meet with our followers and talk to people and let them know what's important to us, find out what's important to you. This is waste reduction and why it matters. My name is Janice Paré, and I head up the Recycle Smart MA team at the Mass Department of Environmental Protection. Today, I am joined by my co-captain, Kathy Dudnoff, and Kathy Mirza, who's the branch chief for MassDEP's Municipal Waste Reduction Branch. And I just want to say thank you to them. They're just great team workers, or co-workers and partners in our work together. So thank you guys. A little bit about Zoom before we get started. On the bottom of your screen, you'll see a black strip like this one here. We're asking that you stay muted and keep your camera off for the webinar to help us run smoothly. To send us your questions, you can click on the chat button and a little box should open up and you can type in your questions there, hit enter to send it. As a reminder, I just mentioned this webinar is being recorded. The recording will be posted on MassDEP's YouTube channel, and we will send a link out to everyone who registered when that happens. We'll also post about it on our social media channel. So one way or another, you should find out when they get posted. So I think we can get started. I'd like to know who we have on the call with us today. So Kat's going to launch our poll, and please take a second and let us know where you are from. Still seeing some people answering, so I'll give a couple seconds. So it looks like a lot of people are from the Boston metro area. Let's see what else we got. Out of state. No one from Sweden. I'm so sad. We do have a lot of subscribers to our newsletter from Sweden, believe it or not. So I think we can close that up, but it's good to know we got North Shore, South Shore represented, the Cape, Western Mass, and Boston metro areas. That's fantastic. So welcome. I hope this is a useful presentation for you. So as we go through this webinar, we're going to be talking about waste, but our waste begins as stuff. So I'd like it if everyone took a minute to reflect on something you recently purchased. It could be something that you use every day or something that it's very special that you don't use every day. But I want you to think about that thing and consider where you bought it. Was it from a local shop, a big box store, online? Where was it made? What's it made of? What kind of packaging did it come in? Can you reuse it many times? Is it repairable? And then lastly, what will you do with it when you're done using it? Why are all these questions important? Because the answers to the questions are tied to the carbon footprint of the products we purchase, from the point of extraction of raw materials to manufacturing, to transportation, to shops and homes, and then of course, at the end of the life of your product. So with that, let's get started. So when we talk about trash, how much are we talking? In 2021, the last year for which I have an updated map, the average household threw away about 1,500 pounds of trash. But some communities throw more trash away than others. So this heat map indicates which communities have higher and lower trash levels based on a solid waste survey we conduct annually. So essentially, if a community wants to apply for a MassDEP grant, we require that they fill out this annual solid waste survey for 2 years in order to be eligible for the grant. So that's how we incentivize people giving us this data. The green colored communities are throwing away less trash, and the dark red and magenta colored communities are throwing away the most trash per household. So why is there a difference? I think a lot of it has to do with the waste reduction strategies that are taking place in the green communities and the opportunities provided to those residents to avoid putting things in the trash. Things like robust recycling outreach, frequent leaf and yard waste collection, convenient textile collection bins, collecting hard to recycle materials at charms, pay-as-you-throw programs in which residents pay per bag or cart of trash that they generate, food scrap collection programs, and lots more. So I want to reiterate, though, those communities can't reduce their trash levels with recycling alone. They provide a lot of opportunities to keep reusable, compostable, or recyclable materials out of the trash. Because as the old saying goes, it's not waste until it's wasted. So you guys all might remember this. This is an old graphic from 2010. I updated the numbers on it. So these are our current numbers, what is in our trash. Trash is defined as anything worthless, useless, or discarded. But what if I told you that more than half of what we put in our trash actually isn't worthless or useless? There's a lot of wasted opportunity in our trash. So here are the numbers shown in another way. These numbers come from our most recent waste characterization study. Waste characterization studies are conducted every 3 years at our municipal waste combustion facilities. And how they work is a team of trained workers take random samples of the trash delivered to the facility over the course of 3 days. The samples are sorted into buckets with 9 primary categories, which are the ones shown in this pie chart. Then there are 62 subcategories that, break that stuff into greater detail. So we know exactly what's going in there. And knowing what's in our trash is really important because we use this data to inform our outreach, our grant programs, our policy recommendations, and our solid waste regulations. And I also want to point out here, I don't know if you can see my cursor, but in the pie chart, organic materials make up nearly 30% of what's in the trash. Paper makes up almost 22%, and metals make up nearly 5%. So this is where you can plainly see that over half of what we put in the trash could have been reduced, recycled, composted, or sent for anaerobic digestion. So why do I mention reduced? Because 21.6%, almost 22% of the organic material in the trash was wasted food, not food scraps, wasted food. So some of you might be wondering also why I didn't include plastics in my, when I was just talking about those 3 categories. And that's because the 15% in this pie chart includes not just plastics that can be recycled, think your bottles, jars, jugs, and tubs, but a lot of recyclables that can't be easily recycled at this time. So things like film plastic, industrial packaging, composite plastics, block styrofoam, stuff like that. In 2022, Mass residents and businesses generated 4,460,000 tons of trash. We in the business call it municipal solid waste, or MSW. That's what we call the trash that's coming from residents and businesses. So that 4.46 million number does not include non-MSW, which is primarily construction and demolition debris, or C&D. So that actually comes from construction sites. The construction and demolition material in this pie chart, it refers to the stuff that's coming from residents and businesses, DIY projects, stuff like that. It's not coming from construction sites. That waste is handled separately from MSW, picked up in different trucks, and it accounts for about 2 million additional tons of waste annually. Okay, so more audience participation. Can we please launch poll number 2? Thank you. So I want to know if you guys know where our trash goes. I think a lot of people have no idea where their trash goes, and they just think it goes away. So I want to see if you all know. Okay, so we're sharing the results. It looks like most of you know that it's all of the above. And if you selected all of the above, you are correct. The answer is all of the above. Congratulations, followers. You know what's going on. You read our stuff. I love that. It warms my heart. So there are 5 municipal waste combustion facilities in Massachusetts. They're also known as incinerators or waste to energy plants. And these facilities burn trash at a very high temperature. The combustion process shrinks the waste 90% by volume and 75% by weight. So it's like a smaller amount, but we still need to bury that. We still need to put the ash, that's the byproduct of what we send to combustion facilities, in a landfill. So we have landfills that accept ash, and we have landfills that just accept MSW and other things. The process of combustion also converts water to steam, which then passes through turbine generators to produce renewable energy, which then offsets carbon emissions from fossil fuels, because instead of using fossil fuels to fuel to give energy to homes around those combustion facilities, we're actually using the electricity generated by the burning of that trash. It also helps reduce methane generation from landfills, because we're not putting food waste in landfills, which is what is generating methane there. But here's the rub. Our remaining landfills are nearing capacity and could close within the next 10 years, depending on how quickly they fill up. The more waste we can divert from the landfills, the longer they can remain open. Our currently operating landfills are located in Bourne, Dartmouth, Middleborough, Nantucket, and Westminster. The 5 waste combustors are all operating at full capacity right now. They are in, let's see, Haverhill, Saugus, Seamass, North Andover. Seamass is in the South Shore area, North Andover, and then Millbury. So the other issue is that there's no new in-state disposal capacity in the pipeline. And that's because there's a moratorium on building new waste combustors in the state. And there are no communities raising their hands right now. Currently, there's no one saying, hey, please put a landfill in my community. Land is scarce and expensive. So it's difficult to find a spot to put a landfill. So you can see our lack of in-state disposal capacity is a great reason to reduce our waste. Another thing is that I didn't mention is that, you know, as we're filling up all this capacity here, we're sending our stuff out of state via trucks and rail. And that makes it more expensive actually to dispose of the trash, because we have to, you know, paying for transportation. And what are all the emissions coming from that? So it's just a lot to think about. So next slide. You thought you guys got away with the polls, but there's more. Can you please launch poll number 3? Yes, thank you. So this question is, did you know that MassDEP updates its solid waste master plan every 10 years? Oh, this is great participation. Thanks, everyone. I love it. Okay, we're sharing. So about half of you knew yes, about half of you didn't know, and some of you also didn't know that you don't even know what a master plan is, and that's okay. That's what we're here for. So yes, we have a plan. Our solid waste master plan is a comprehensive statewide plan for reducing and managing solid waste. And the fun fact is, having a plan is actually required by Massachusetts General Laws, Chapter 16, Section 21. So that's great. Like, we're actually required to update this every 10 years. A lot of news comes out of California and Oregon related to their waste and recycling programs. But I just want you to know that Massachusetts has been a leader in waste reduction. And a lot of that is because of the goals we set for ourselves via the solid waste master plan. So our most critical goal is to reduce the amount of material we throw away by 30% in the next decade, by 2030. So that's a decrease of 30% from a 2018 baseline. Massachusetts residents and businesses, so the MSW, they threw away nearly 5.7 million tons of trash in 2018. So in 2022 was 4.46 million. So we have made some progress, but we have a lot of work to do. If we're going to meet these are really ambitious goals, and we have a lot of work to do. So I'm going to take a little bit of time to talk about some strategies for meeting our goals later in the presentation. So unfortunately, I cannot see any of your virtual hands, but if you want to, where is it? Can you raise your virtual hands and tell me if you know what a waistband is? Maybe I can see. Oh, I see. Rachel Smith, that's not fair. You work for MassDEP. All right. Who else? Ooh, I see you. Okay, good. This is excellent. So now that I know what you know, I'm going to explain it to the people that don't know. Waistbands are an integral part of our waste reduction strategy. In fact, Massachusetts was one of the first states to implement a waistband on easy to recycle and/or toxic materials. The term waistband is industry speak for the things that are either too good or too bad to trash. So in a nutshell, the waste bans were created to, one, promote reuse, waste reduction, and recycling by keeping good stuff out of the trash. Two, protect human health and the environment by keeping toxic stuff out of the trash. And three, prolong the life of our landfills and incinerators while mitigating their environmental impacts. And then four, support local recycling and composting businesses by ensuring a reliable supply of materials. This is important because if you want to have a circular economy, you need to provide the feedstock to, produce more stuff. And then you need to buy that stuff to create demand for the feedstock. So it's all a loop. So now that you know what a waste ban is, and I know that many of you already knew, I just want to know if you know what's actually banned from disposal here in Massachusetts. So we have one last poll, and you can select all that you are aware of. Well, a lot of you know about mercury. That's great. CRTs. Good. Okay. So we're sharing the results. Great. So it looks like you guys have a firm handle on what most of the things are that we don't want to see in the trash. So here's a list of the ones that impact us. So I just want to go back and just say, we were one of the first ones to have a waste ban. Our first waste ban went into effect 33 years ago, and it prohibited lead acid batteries from landfill and incineration. It seems like a no-brainer to keep that stuff out of the trash. Since then, Massachusetts has added 14 more to the list. The ones you're most likely to see at home are the CRTs, which you knew, glass and metal containers, which I don't think we listed, but it looks like bottles and cans you guys weren't positive about, but yeah, they are. Leaves and yard waste, recyclable paper, cardboard and paperboard, narrow neck plastic containers, which are the bottles, jars, and jugs, and appliances, which are often called white goods. Some of our followers might remember that we had a whole newsletter on textiles and mattresses. They were added to the waste ban list almost exactly a year ago, last November 1st, 2022. And I just want to say, whenever I talk about textiles, I want to remind people that they never go in the recycling. The waste ban keeps them out of the trash, but they were never meant to go in the recycling. So they need to go to donation centers. Now I'm going to nerd out a little bit. I want to let you guys know this is a really great thing in Massachusetts, and a lot of states are taking our lead on this. So one of the bans that's not listed here is our commercial food waste ban. And I want to bring it up because it relates to that waste characterization study data I showed you before. I mentioned that knowing what's in our waste helps direct our policies and regulations. And the commercial food waste ban is a really great example of that. So the ban was updated last year, 2022, but initially went into effect in 2014. So the current ban basically reads, any business generating more than half a ton of food waste per week must find a better way to handle the food in order to keep it out of the trash. It could be by donating food to food rescue organizations, sending it to animal feed operations, or they can compost it or send it to anaerobic digestion operations. The really cool thing is that we conducted a study in 2016 to find what's the impact of this waste ban. And we found that Massachusetts commercial food waste ban and supporting strategies helped to support 900 jobs, added $77 million to the gross state product, and generated $175 million in annual economic activity, which is amazing. The commercial food waste ban has been a boon for food rescue programs, supporting our food insecure population across the state, because food that used to be tossed when it neared its best buy date, which is not the same as an expiration date. So the food is safe. It would have been tossed. They're giving it to these food rescue organizations. So now it's being eaten. And I used to work at a small grocery shop in Los Angeles. And I remember, it was every night they would go through and they would look at the dates. And if the meat was going to be best by tomorrow, they would put it in the dumpster. And I remember thinking that is the sickest, worst, biggest waste of food I had ever seen. And Massachusetts recognized that problem too. And we are heading it off with this food waste ban. And I'm really proud of us for doing that. So moving on. So far today, I've talked a lot about what happens to our stuff downstream. So that's after we throw it away. Thinking about recycling, landfills, and combustion facilities, though, is only one piece of our consumption pie. The greater environmental impacts actually occur upstream. And when we talk about upstream, we mean everything that went into the production of a product, manufacturing. So before it gets to the consumer. So that's the things like the extraction of natural resources via mining, drilling, fracking, and deforestation, impacts to environmental justice communities, habitat destruction and endangering species. I once met a scientist who all he did was study this one little organism that was being endangered by mining in like Ohio. So it's incredible. Air emissions from manufacturing and transportation, water emissions during extraction and manufacturing, energy use in manufacturing, and the water used in manufacturing. So downstream is everything that happens to a product after you dispose of it. Upstream is all that other stuff. And now I'm going to pass the reins over to Kathy Mirza, who's going to lead us through the next couple of slides.
Thank you, Janice. And I appreciate leading up to this. And I just wanted to offer just a little sidebar to connect what we do with the materials that we buy and the products and packaging and how that connects with climate change. And it gets to the upstream comments that Janice just made a few moments ago. I'm sure many of you can relate to this, but nearly every day in the news, we hear a story in the media about the newest climate-related crisis or event. It can be a hurricane, a flood, a fire, a drought, and sometimes there are dire consequences for people and wildlife. So with that in mind, I wanted to just share this slide with you, and thank you, Janice, for putting it together. And it's from a 2021 report from the Ellen MacArthur Foundation, which some of you may be familiar with. They have this report called Completing the Picture and How the Circular Economy Tackles Climate Change. And the emissions associated with the production of products, food, and managing our land are characterized as the overlooked emissions. So simply put, this pie chart is here to show us how the production, the consumption, and the disposal of the food and the consumer products that we buy generate about 45% of all greenhouse gas emissions globally. And we know that's a primary driver of climate change. So I think it's really important that we connect our individual choices with the larger impact it really has when you think about it on scale. So as Janice mentioned, if you think of all the energy and resources it takes to mine, and then we use these products and then we're throwing it away, things that are particularly wasteful would be things like, single-use packaging and cups. So it really is imperative that we work together to reduce waste. On this next slide, this is from a National Geographic issue from 2020, and just wanted to show you, it really kind of illustrates also the upstream impacts of all the resources that we're extracting from the planet to make all the stuff that we use, right? So the first bar shows this extraordinary amount, the billions of tons of materials in one particular year that are extracted to make products and packaging. Okay, and then if you look at this, you can see that most of that, unfortunately, gets wasted. That's the second bar. But we also know that when we purchase durable items and that when we reuse as much as possible, that those decisions can actually make a very big difference over time and on scale when you can think about this across the entire planet. So if you imagine for a moment going to a coffee shop and getting a beverage and it's in a single-use disposable cup versus bringing your own reusable cup. The wastefulness from that single-use food container really does have a huge impact when we add up all of those that are being used each and every day. So with that in mind, I just wanted to kind of underscore reuse and ask all of you to kind of work with us and think about using less. Think about reusing as much as possible in our purchasing decisions, that even those small decisions make a very big difference. Thanks, and I'll pass it back to Janice.
Thanks, Kathy. I thought she could do those 2 sleds much better than I could. So I appreciate her taking the time to do that for me. But I want to just say that I bring it all back together. I think she said it perfectly. It all leads us to this kind of reframing the waste hierarchy approach that we have been thinking about a lot, and how we can sort of just like be conscientious about the choices that we're making when we buy stuff. And believe me, we understand that not everybody's going to be perfect all the time. I just went to a birthday party with my kid, and I got a little bag full of plastic goodies, and I couldn't say no. She's 8. Like, I'm not going to say no, but now I have all this like plastic stuff that I'm going to have to throw away. And no, I don't want to, but my house is also not a landfill. So I just want you guys to know that, like, nobody's perfect. We are inundated with things. What we can do is just think about those things and think about our purchases, remembering the upstream and remembering the downstream impacts of the decisions that we make. And this is not just the responsibility, by the way, of people, residents. This is the responsibility of corporations and globally. We all need to be thinking about this from this whole like global perspective. So I just running through this, rethink, that's shifting the buy, use, toss paradigm to a more thoughtful approach. You could refuse, simply saying no to excess packaging. So when you have a choice of getting a bag or not getting a bag, simply saying, I don't need the bag. I'm just going to take it to my car. That's a step in the right direction. Or remembering to bring your own bag. It's another way to do it. Choosing to create less trash with thoughtful purchasing. So, like, that's kind of the question of, do I really need it? What's going to happen to this in the future? Maybe I'm actually just not going to get it. Reusing, as Kathy mentioned, repairing our worn or torn items to extend their useful life. And then, you've got rot, which is composting and anaerobic digestion, and then recycling. And we don't have it on here because it's not really part of what we were thinking about. But then the last thing is disposal. That's like the least preferred outcome. So one way, actually, I just want to also say that one of the questions that we always ask ourselves is like, okay, so you're asking me to do all this rethinking and stuff, but I actually live in a modern society and I want to continue enjoying all the conveniences of that modern society. So we were thinking about how can you, still have those conveniences, but also be making better choices. So we're going to go through those strategies now. And one of those is to try a library of things, or a tool library. So instead of purchasing something you might only use once a year, you could consider borrowing it. I love this idea. I have so many things that I would love to donate to libraries because I don't use them. I could have used just to borrow like this one cupcake tin I got for my kid's birthday one year. And I was like, why did I buy this? So the libraries are great. And just to bring it back, libraries have been in the reuse and sharing business for 2 centuries now. So this is like a natural step for them to take to now have more than just books, but like things. This picture is taken from the Arlington Robbins Library. I was blown away by their website. They have images of so many things. I've heard of libraries having American Girl dolls to borrow because, like, maybe your kid wants to borrow it for 2 weeks, but then they're done playing with it. Genius. Bike repair kits, binoculars, stud finders, sewing machines, metal detectors, soil testers, karaoke machines, paper shredders. The list goes on and on. Look, there's a puzzle. It's amazing. Swap shops are another awesome option. So swap shops keep usable items out of the trash by offering them up to someone else who could use them. So instead of putting them on the curb with a big free sign, you can take them to your local swap shop where they'll be out of the elements in a shed. And then, as somebody else is coming by, maybe dropping off a mannequin with a dress on it, they say, oh, look, there's a bed frame. I've been looking for a bed frame just like that. And then they can swap it, take it. You don't have to swap. You can just take. It's always free. And they're often run by volunteers. So it's just a really great option to have in a community. Not every community has swap shops, but many of them do. So you can just like Google your town and say swap shop or swap shack and see what comes up. As Kathy mentioned, there's also repair. So good old fashioned repair, which used to be very commonplace. But unfortunately, a lot of things are designed to be hard to repair or not repairable at all these days. It's different from how it used to be. Some things are actually cheaper to buy new than to repair. So that's unfortunate. But repair shops do still exist, and there are still things that can be repaired. And what I love about repair is, it helps you keep your beloved item out of the trash for longer. I had a Samsonite, like giant piece of luggage, and it was, I don't know, it's like 25 years old now, but I swear they don't make them. They don't make those big suitcases like they used to. And I sent it to the Samsonite repair shop twice before I had to finally say goodbye because it got ripped to shreds. But I could not find in, 5 years ago, a suitcase that was as well made as that one from 25 years ago when I was first out of college and had like a job where I had to travel a lot. And man, I didn't care how much it cost to repair. I wanted to keep that thing. So that's the best thing about repair, I think, is that it helps you keep the things you love longer. There's also a lot of community repair events that are cropping up. And I love community repair events because generally they're very low cost or free. It brings neighbors together. You're reducing waste. You're learning how to repair stuff. And it's usually intergenerational. So you got the older people, you got the younger people, everyone's coming together, keeping their favorite things out of the trash if they can. And just to put in a plug, I think the cat will put in there's a couple of links I wanted you guys to know about. So if you're interested in a community repair event or finding one, you can check out the Fix It Clinic webpage and the Repair Cafe web pages. Those two kinds of repair, they're kind of like different ideas about how to repair, but they're both great. And so you can look into that. Another option is refilling. So there's a growing number of refilleries around where you can get your, cosmetics and stuff refilled. But at farmers markets, often they will have refillable options that you can take and then come back with that same container. Then they'll like take it back and sanitize it for you. But some of them will, I guess, let you bring your own container too. Better than that, you can take your own container to Starbucks or wherever you get your coffee, and always remember to do that so you don't have to take another cup. You got your bags. I always carry a cloth napkin because I'm a big waste nerd, and I always carry my utensils. So that way I can say, please don't give me that stuff when I inevitably go out to lunch during my work week. So sharing and gifting platforms, I think a lot of people know about these. There's FreeCycle, Buy Nothing. I think Nextdoor probably has options for giving away things, gifting things. Craigslist, you can give stuff away on Craigslist. I'd love it if you guys could take a second and put in the chat anything I might be missing for ways to, be a part of the share economy, because I think it's really cool. And then other people might be interested. Kat, you're going to have to let me know if people are putting stuff in. No?
Yep. Someone said the habitat restore is a great
Okay.
option. Regifting, I think that's important, especially with the holidays coming up.
Regifting is awesome. Anything else?
Not yet.
Oh.
Share a list of things on your neighborhood's email list.
Oh,
that's awesome.
Okay. Some neighborhoods are more friendly than others. If there is an email list in my neighborhood, I wasn't invited. I haven't been invited yet.
Someone else said using Poshmark or ThreadUp for clothes.
Yes, that's great.
Called free shelves.
eBay too.
eBay too. Using your used goods as craft supplies. That's a good idea. Things, I guess, leaving things out on a sidewalk near your house. That happens a lot where I live, and I will admit to being the person that looks around for things that I need. So that is awesome.
I heard a phrase called junker necking, which is when you're like driving by and you're like, oh, maybe I need to get that thing off the side of the road. I love it.
Rent the runway. Free edges. Free edges? I don't know. Not sure what that is. And maybe it's like a group or gifting something. I don't know, but
Okay.
looking to.
All right. Thanks for sharing, guys. So we're going to move on to food waste. I mentioned food waste before on the commercial side. Reducing food waste has significant benefits to the economy, food security, and greenhouse gases. Agriculture is resource intense, and if you consider that 40% of the food produced is never eaten, the problem of food waste comes sharply into focus. So here's what we can do as individuals. Plan, make a menu, have a list. When you go to the store, only buy what's on your list. Very difficult for me. Use up what you have. Shop your fridge before you go to the store. Make sure you have, or make sure you don't have eggs before you buy more. Or for me, make sure you don't have salad before you buy more because it's inevitably going to go bad. Modify your recipes. You can modify your recipes to use the food that you have, which, some people like doing that. And of course, you can eat your leftovers. Take them for lunch the next day. Store your food properly. The Save the Food campaign, I believe, actually has little tips on how to store your produce to make it last longer, which is neat because one of the ones we saw recently was for asparagus, which I actually had no idea how to store asparagus properly. And the last thing you can do is you can donate. Like, let's say you get a can of green beans that you're never going to eat. They're not expired. The best by date is coming up. You're not going to eat them. You can take them to a local food pantry. That's totally fine. And that is helpful. You can also compost your food scraps. Composting is great. It stores carbon, eliminates the methane emissions that would happen if it was just rotting or decomposing in a landfill. And it also is a soil amendment, so it helps if you put it back into the ground. It's helping our soil maintain their health. So if you don't have a backyard or you don't want to compost in your backyard, that's totally fine. You can participate in your community's food scrap collection program if there is one and they are really growing. They're coming around. So, yeah, there's backyard composting. A lot of communities provide discounted bins for backyard composting. A lot of communities are now picking it up curbside, which is super easy. They have drop-off locations for food scraps, sometimes at transfer stations, sometimes just like at a community garden, or in Boston, they're just located in certain areas. You can find that on Project Oscar, where they're located. So this is really an idea that's growing, and it is becoming a lot easier to avoid putting food scraps in the trash. And one other thing about putting your food scraps in, like composting them and not putting them in the trash, another benefit is that it reduces rodents. That's a win-win. Getting food scraps out of the trash is like the multi-win. Okay, so clothing and textiles, back to our waste characterization study. So we know that we in Massachusetts throw away 5%. 5% of our trash is textiles. So that's a lot. It's a lot of good material going to waste, which is why they are now banned from disposal. So, and I'll say it again, remember, textiles do not go in the recycling. You got to take them to the donation bins. According to the Secondary Market and Recycling Textiles Group, which is called SMART, there's like basically 5 outcomes for the things that we donate. 45% of the textiles can be reused or resold as apparel. Great. 30% will be cut into wiping rags or polishing cloths that are used in commercial and industrial settings. 20% are reprocessed into their basic fiber content to create furniture stuffing, upholstery, home insulation, automobile soundproofing, carpet padding, building materials, lots of stuff. And then 5% are the things that are just unusable. And they are usually the things that have been mildewed, like because they came in wet. Maybe they're really stinky. Maybe they're covered in some kind of a solvent, or like covered in paint or something like that. There's really nothing we can do with those ones. So those ones would be disposed. But what I want to say is textile recovery is big business. And the vast majority of textiles can be recycled. So I think almost every single municipality in the state now has a donation collection bin, if not in your community, maybe in the next community over, but they're really all over the place. regardless of what you think of that piece of clothing, if that sock has a hole in it, put it in there. They'll find a way to use that material. It's too good to go in the trash. So please, and don't put it in the recycling, please go ahead and find those donation facilities or bins. Changing directions here, a different approach to waste reduction are plastic bans. So this is similar to our waste bans, but this is like municipality by municipality. Several communities across Massachusetts have banned single-use plastic bags and expanded polystyrene in order to see less of those things in the trash and recycling. So if you're interested in learning more about that, you should go to massgreen.org. Extended producer responsibility, also known as product stewardship, is a waste reduction strategy that shifts the financial burden of waste management away from local governments and residents and puts it on the product producers. So, for example, the bottle bill, that is a producer responsibility bill here in Massachusetts. It's been around for a long time. We pay the 5 cents on our carbonated beverages, take them to the reclaimer, and you get your 5 cents back, and the bottles get recycled directly into new bottles. That's an EPR program that exists already. Connecticut currently has 4 EPR programs. They cover paint, electronic devices, mattresses, and mercury thermostats. There is a new program for gas cylinders, the little ones you use when you go camping, and tires, and those ones are set to begin shortly. Maine has an EPR law for product packaging, so that's pretty great. While some may argue that EPR focuses heavily on our downstream solutions, to me, the promise is that for EPR is that it creates opportunities to realize the circular economy that we've been talking about, which, in theory, would lower our greenhouse gas emissions. EPR programs create more access points, and they lower the cost burden for finding outlets for hard to recycle materials. So by making it easy to recover those materials, we're going to be able to divert more toxic or dangerous or, completely recyclable materials from the trash. And that will help us meet our solid waste master plan goals, which are, reduce the trash, reduce toxic things in the trash. Lastly, I just want to say, we think MassDEP thinks we can do this, but we need to shift from that mostly linear economy to a circular economy in the US and around the world. Like I said, it's not a personal choice every time. Like we have personal choices, but this is like something that corporations, everybody needs to be on board to do this. A circular economy is focused on eliminating waste and eliminating the continual depletion of resources. And the circular economy is a restorative model that employs reuse, sharing, repair, refurbishment, remanufacturing, recycling to create a closed loop system, minimizing the use of resource inputs and the creation of waste, pollution, and carbon emissions. So with that, I want to thank you for listening and put a quick plug in for the remainder of our week. We've got Ask Me Anything tomorrow and Reuse and Repair. Extend your wallet's power while reducing your environmental impact on Thursday. Same bat time, different bat channels. You need to register for those separately. But with that, I will open it up for questions or discussion. If anyone has anything they would like to say, they can put it in the chat, or you can raise your hand.
Hi. We have some raised hands. Do you want to do that first? We've also got a couple of questions in the Q&A in the chat. So I see Phil Goddard has his hand up. Do you want to let him go first?
Let's go, Phil.
Yeah. Phil, feel free to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hello?
I can hear you.
Okay. I'm calling in a phone. Okay. Just wanted to let you know that someone had a question about fabrics. There is a company that was featured recently called CERT. Okay. Can you hear me now? Better?
Yes.
Okay. So there's a company that separates the polyester from the cotton. So that technology is being developed. But my main comment is that we need EPR, and everybody needs to know that EP is limited in their advocacy. So from the municipal level, you need to advocate for EPR very strongly. and MassDEP has information on their website.
Unfortunately, we missed the end of that. But Phil, if you could put your comment in the chat, I don't know if you can, if you're on the phone, but if you could put your comment in the chat, I think that would be helpful. I could read it out for you. But because you're so difficult, it's very difficult to hear you. I'm going to move on to Allison. I apologize, Phil.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes.
Hi, so I'm Alison Anholt-White. I'm the Chair of Sustainability in Manchester by the Sea, Massachusetts. We have a situation where none of our local restaurants compost at all the food waste. We have, as you know, Black Earth in our town is not free for them, but they can provide a very good deal for the restaurants. But I think they're probably all under the half-ton requirement. So what would be your strategy for getting these restaurants to compost? Because by far the largest amount of food waste that's generated in our geographic area is probably from restaurant food waste. Does anybody have any suggestions?
I do. So I'm glad that you're from the sustainability group. I would reach out to Recycling Works in Mass. They provide technical assistance to businesses, and they do work with businesses to promote composting or sending to anaerobic digestion. And if they don't meet the threshold, then we don't enforce against them. But it doesn't mean that they wouldn't be eligible for technical assistance from Recycling Works. So if you want to email me later, we can talk about it for sure.
I have one other quick point to make. You talk about extended producer responsibility. In my view, oil companies like ExxonMobil are one of the most enormous generators of plastic. And the less gasoline and diesel that we're using, the more plastic is being produced because they're going to keep their corporate profits up. So until that gets tackled globally in some way, I don't think we have a prayer of using less plastic. And plastic is the hugest problem in the environment today. That's just my opinion.
I appreciate that opinion. Thank you. Adriana, sorry.
So I was wondering about municipal compost, because I know Cambridge offers city-sponsored compost at the curbside, but I don't know of any other towns that do that. And I'm wondering if that's something that's on your radar or something that you're planning for. Yeah.
Where are you from?
I used to live in Somerville. I'm now living in New Hampshire.
Okay. So yeah, there are actually, there are a couple of Boston has curbside composting now, Watertown, Hamilton. So it's growing, it's happening, but more common right now are the food scrap drop-off locations, which are still great if you're interested in, using them. Mm-hmm. And then, yes, and I saw Allison put in Black Earth compost. There's also a lot of private subscription vendors who will take compost from the curb, and that's statewide. You can find them everywhere.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Thank you.
No problem. Is there anybody else? I don't know what time it is. 12:52. So we have some time. I just saw Phil put in something in the chat. Go ahead, Beth.
I just have a question about, I live in an apartment building and I have a disposal in my sink, and that's where I put wasted fruit and vegetables. No one talks about that. Doesn't that keep the food out of the landfill?
It does. The reason why I don't talk about that is because it kind of depends on your water treatment plant and where it's going. So I don't think it's a problem that you do that, but it's like not my area of expertise. So I generally don't talk about it a lot, because when people ask me, I just go, maybe you should talk to your water department and make sure it's cool. I think it is, but I also use my disposal a lot. Kathy, do you have something to say?
Yeah, I just thought I'd chime in because I saw something in the chat about that as well. I'm not sure if you had posted that question, Beth. Was it? Okay. Yeah, and it does exactly what Jenna said. It depends on how your wastewater is treated. So in the town that I live in, we're on septic. So those types of systems are not even allowed here. So it would never be used in a community where you're on septic. Also, you definitely want to keep oil and grease out of that equation because that can clog up pipes. We've communicated with enough public works officials to know that oil and grease is something we definitely want to keep out of the sinks and the pipes, those incinerators. Most compost operations, my understanding is they will accept any kind of oil and grease, and as well as all these other food scraps that they actually can enhance the digestion process. But like Janice said, I would talk to your community about what's appropriate based on how it's managed there.
Thank you. But it's
Thank you.
interesting that no one's talking about it, not just the two of you. And most people have disposals in homes and use them. And they may or may not know about the oil and the grease.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it's like, I don't use it in lieu of composting, you know? Even if I were a vegetarian, I would not solely use that to put my food scraps in because, you know, I go through a lot of peelings, you know, and stuff like that. So I use my compost. I have actually broken an incinerator trying to put down a whole bunch of artichoke leaves. It was a terrible moment in my life. So I don't necessarily know how people do it, but I wouldn't do it. A little bit is okay, but I wouldn't do it just like as another alternative to composting.
And what do you think about the people in apartment buildings, which is a lot of people, the composting, those little instruments that you can compost in your kitchen, and then you get rid of it somehow after a few weeks?
Like the yeah, I know what you're talking about. I can't think of the name of the brand right now. Those are cool. I have no problem with those. Those are neat. I will say that they do not produce finished compost. So you don't want to put that directly like on your plants because it could like burn them with all the nitrogen and stuff. You got to like, I guess, mix it in with soil and let it sort of finish. But yeah, I mean, they're neat. They're expensive.
Oh, okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Janice, there's a couple of questions in the Q&A. I don't know if you can see it or if you want me to read it out.
I can't see it. Would you mind?
So the first one, I think, is going back to the solid waste master plan. It says the 30% and 90% waste reduction goals. Can you clarify what is meant by waste? Is this inclusive of trash and recycling and compost, or just trash?
It is just trash, I think. That's a good question, though. Kathy, do you know?
Yes, just trash. You're correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Did I hear you say that there's a ban on building any more waste incineration facilities in Massachusetts right now?
There is a moratorium, and it has not been lifted.
Okay. Is there a list of library of things locations? I don't think so.
I think we used to have one, and it has not been updated.
In the State Library Association has a listing that includes some of them, but on our website, that's on our to-do list to really update that, because each year we see more and more coming online. And so we are gathering that information so that we can make that available statewide, but definitely check your city and town for specific info.
The next one is about textiles. What to do with stained or moldy textiles? Should they be trashed? What if they contaminate good clothes?
So it depends on the stain. I mean, if they're just like stained with some spaghetti sauce, you know, and you washed it, totally fine. Put it in. If it's like fully stained, you used it to like, you know, clean your bike chain and it's just full of oil, I would say you should put that in the trash. Mildew, that kind of stuff, definitely you want to put it in the trash. I hope, does that answer that, Kat?
Yeah, definitely. I'm just scrolling through the chat. There's a lot of questions. So Kathy, if you see one that I missed, please feel free to ask it too. Here's one. I recently moved and my landlord does not provide a recycling dumpster for tenant use. There's a lot of waistband items going in the trash. Does the state have any plans on implementing mandatory recycling across the board?
So the state has the mandate, which is the waistband, but we don't have a mandate on recycling. That comes from a municipality. And in terms of your building, please email us with the information, because that is a waistband violation, and we will send them a letter to introduce them to the waistbands, because maybe they don't know, and let them know that there are resources like Recycling Works in Massachusetts that can help them figure out how to abide by the waste bans. Which is a very short answer, but we can get into it more if you send us the information via email.
Where can I find a clothing donation center? Do you want to hit on that?
Okay, so you can Google it, or you can go to our Beyond the Bin tool, which is on Recycle Smart MA. Kath can put in the link. She runs that program. So when you go to Beyond the Bin, I think a lot of people struggle with finding something close to them. And the trick is you have to sort by distance. Most municipalities do have these donation centers or bins. So put in your zip code, sort by distance, you'll find something close to you. The other thing I always say is check, like a lot of houses of worship will have them in the parking lot. A lot of schools have them in the parking lot. They're at the MBTA stations. So these bins are everywhere. And a lot of them don't publicize where they are for reasons I'm not going to get into, but it's true. So we try to get them to put their information up. Once you see one, you can't stop seeing them. They're everywhere. I think Adriana had her hand up again. I don't know if she had to leave, but I want to give her a chance to talk if she still had a question.
She did put a comment in that she had to leave.
Oh, I'm sorry.
I can't find any other questions right now. Kathy, are you seeing anything that we missed?
The only thing I see was a question about whether pillows can be recycled. And my understanding is that it's okay to put pillows in the textile recovery bins. Does that align with your understanding, Janice? I mean, we're getting updates as well from the industry folks to make sure, but last I have here, it's okay.
It depends on the company that's taking them. So if you want to be sure that it's okay, you can check Beyond the Bin and we'll send you to a link to the let's say Bay State Textiles, for example, because I know they take them. So go to that thing and they'll give you a list of the things that they take. But there are other ones that don't want them. And so, I mean, I think it's okay to put them in. Don't take them like bed pillows. I wouldn't take them to, say, a Savers or a Goodwill necessarily, because they might just throw them away, or they might just put them in with the textiles in there, end up going to make rags or whatever, or upholstery anyway. So my suggestion would be, like, find a bin, put them in.
I wonder about animal shelters as well as an opportunity for sometimes those really scrappy blankets and pillows, perhaps.
Am I here? Do you hear me?
We can hear you.
Oh, okay. Sorry, I thought I was not there. Looks like Marissa's saying couch cushions are not accepted through Bay State. So yeah, I mean, if you really want to be sure, you should check the individual websites. It looks like animal shelters will take them. Again, you want to reach out before you just take them over. Don't waste your time.
Another question.
We're over time. I don't know if there any more pressing questions. I feel like maybe people are getting back to work.
There's one more, I think, maybe. Well, I'd want to hear your answer, I think, but
okay.
What do you think of the right to repair movement? Do you think it'll make a difference?
Oh, definitely. I definitely think the right to repair movement will make a difference. I think it is making a difference. It's opening up, locked boxes so that more people can repair things, and I think it will overall make it more competitive and reduce the price for repairing those things. So you don't have to necessarily go back to the manufacturer to get that thing fixed. So I think right to repair is really important. I would look into it to see if you want to support it yourselves, but yes, it's a good movement.
Thank you. Lots of nice comments, people who used the Recyclopedia, people who said you did a great presentation. So it's really nice to see that.
Glad they're using the Recyclopedia. That's great. All right. Well, I just want to say thanks to everyone who's still sticking with us, and I'm going to stop the presentation, but if you have any questions, you can always reach us through social media. Thank you so much for joining us today. And yes, this is, as you know, recorded, and we will be posting it on YouTube. Bye.